so proud and delighted about the kind of speakers that were brought to your table, because these guys are the bomb. So right on the go, I'm going to have our first speaker for the night take on the rostrum as he speaks to you all. Don't forget, this session is being live streamed on YouTube. And if at any point you find yourself unable to join on Zoom, please don't be afraid. Don't be afraid. No, we're not recording. It's live on YouTube, so we're not recording. I can see Aisha from Abuja. I will introduce Ada. You're an OSP member. Introductions are strictly for non-OSP members. So tonight we have a distinguished Toastmaster, a veterinary doctor, a man that has graced big stages, especially continental and international. He's an author. He's a very gentleman. He's an authority, and he's quite an inspiring speaker. He's a distinguished Toastmaster, and he's Dr. Benjamin Wayo. Guys, make welcome with me Dr. Benjamin Wayo as he takes the floor and speaks to us. Welcome, boss. Over to you.
Thank you very much, sir. I hope I am audible and clearly heard by everyone.
Yes, you are.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me. I'll start off by telling a very short and simple story. Growing up, I had a challenge, very simple challenge. I thought that there was something wrong with me. I thought I didn't look good enough. So it happened right straight from home that they used to make fun of my head and even my complexion. From my complexion, they used to call me something like Bakin Tukunya. If you speak Hausa, Bakin Tukunya means black pot.
Black pot.
Yes. And also my head. It seems like my head was a shade bigger than everybody else's head. And even my own siblings were making fun of me growing up. And so I felt that there was something wrong with me. But I had something interesting going on at the same time. It was my mother. Yeah. So my mother had this attitude of always, anytime we're preparing for school, she would look at me, she would make me straighten my shirt, and she would look me in the eye and say, farm boy, give me 5. And from then on, and going further, I had this attitude. If my mother thinks I'm a fine boy, then I don't care what anybody says. I'm a fine boy, whether anybody likes it or not. So I'd like to ask you, ladies and gentlemen, do I have your attention? All right, so my talk is if I have your attention, please type it in the chat box. If I have your attention, I'm going to start sharing my screen. My talk is very simple and very straightforward today. And I'd like you to pay as much attention as possible. This can, in any way possible, change your life. I believe that very strongly. All right, if you can see my screen, you can type it down in the chat box. If you can see my screen, you can type it in the chat box. What do you see on my screen? Yeah, talk is cheap, attention is not. And I started this talk very, very deliberately with the story that I told, with the intention of getting your attention. If you are a speaker, you should always have the intention of getting the attention of your audience. You should always have the intention, a clear and deliberate intention of getting the attention of your audience. So we're saying that in this time and age that we're in, it is so important for a speaker, whenever it is that you're talking, whatever kind of talk you're giving, whatever kind of talk you're delivering, it could be at a wedding, it could be as a presentation in your office, it could be a pitch that you're making. You should have the capacity to be able to look up and notice that your audience is paying attention. So I asked from my story whether you got my attention. And I think whether I got your attention. And I think to a great extent, unless you've heard the story before and you found it boring, most likely I've gotten your attention. And this is one of the many tools and things that we use. But I'm going to talk a little bit about making sure that you can have the attention of your audience anytime that you're speaking. Now, the argument is very simple. A lot of people say that talk is cheap. They say talk is cheap, talk is cheap, talk is cheap. It's easier to say something than to do it. And in a sense, they have an argument. But then when you think about it, if talk is so cheap, how come public speaking is listed as one of the most feared things by almost everybody on earth? If you want to list the top 5 things that people are afraid of, public speaking is one of them. A lot of people would rather die than speak in public. So public speaking skills, being able to stand in, being able to talk, that talk that you're saying is cheap. Is it truly cheap? In a sense, if you still want to argue, you could say it's cheap, but it is not cheap when you consider the attention you can get. And that's my argument. It's about attention. It's really not just about what somebody is saying. It's really about the attention that you're able to garner whenever it is that you're speaking. Now, in the world that we live in today, this is a statement that was made by by Nobel Prize winning economics. He said, a wealth of information creates a poverty of attention. A wealth of information creates a poverty of attention. We're in an age and time where there is a flood of information. The amount of data, videos, ideas that are being spread across every day today are so much higher than they were 10, 15, 20 years ago. If you go further down, we are dealing with so much information. But with that comes the poverty of attention. People are reducing in their ability to give attention to anything. Now, attention is powerful. In fact, attention is the new currency. That's true, because a lot of organizations, a lot of companies are paying huge amounts of money in order to have the attention of their audiences. Social media, Facebook, Google, Instagram, just name all the social medias and all TikTok, name them. Everyone is trying one thing or the other to get your attention. Why? Because your attention is now money. We have realized that attention is a platform to be able to get influence, impact, and income. So attention is money. Where people pay attention, they pay money. Now, this is the fact of life today. That's one of the reasons why you find yourself powerless against your devices, against your phones, against your tablets, and so on and so forth, because of the attention that people are crafting. People are trying to craft and get your attention no matter what. This is very important. Now, the point I'm trying to make is very simple. In a world where attention is so difficult to get, it becomes even harder for a speaker to get people's attention. It becomes even harder for a speaker to get people's attention. In fact, there's a principle we use in public speaking. We tell people that if you do not get people's attention in the first 8 to 10 seconds, you are most likely going to lose them much further going down, especially if you don't have much time. So getting the attention, that is where the value is. Getting attention is where the value is. And people are doing it in social media. They are doing it in videos. They are doing it in all kinds of content. What are you doing to make sure that anytime you talk, you open your mouth in front of a video, you open your mouth in front of your boss, you open your mouth in front of your colleagues, you are able to garner the attention that will give value? And the problem is just this: human attention span is reducing because of the amount of information. There is a poverty of attention, and the attention span of people are reducing every single day. In 2000, as early as 2000, this is just about 23, 24 years ago, the attention span, the average attention span of every human being was about 12 seconds. Okay, people had their average attention span of 12 seconds. Going further to just as early as 2015, it went down to 8.25 seconds. Of course, earlier than that, before the 2000s, average attention span was higher. Some of you have greater attention spans. You can have attention spans up to an hour, fine. But the average attention span kept reducing to the extent that last year, or rather 2 years ago, 2022, it was down to 7 seconds. Now, guess what the average attention span of a goldfish is? A goldfish, a fish inside the little bottle, if you like, it's about 8 to 9 seconds. So the average attention span of a goldfish is higher than the average attention span of the average human being today. And that's a thing of concern. Now, why is it a thing of concern? Because if you are a speaker, there is a high chance that people are not going to listen to what you're saying because they can easily shift to something and someone else. And you have to be that person that is able to get the attention of your audience, no matter what they are doing. It's not always going to favor you, but most of the time it will. In fact, you'll have a high grade of being able to do so well in getting the attention of your audience. And it is so important because attention spans are reducing. So what are you going to do? Are you going to sit down there and say it's impossible? Or are you going to do something? I say this to a lot of people, that you can run away from public speaking, but you cannot hide. Sometimes you try to get motivation to do something, but one day, motivation is the one that is going to follow you. We coach people a lot, and sometimes when I'm coaching some people, I find out that there are people that are going to the end of their years and they've started consulting, or they want to start consulting. Maybe they've worked in one company or the other, and they realize that this consulting involves talking to people, and they can't talk to people. So if you run, you can't hide, and one day motivation will follow you. May you know how to find the motivation before the motivation follows you. This is one of the reasons why we're doing what we're doing here today, so that you can be able to master your talk to gain the attention that is necessary. So I'm starting this so that I'm going to get you to have an idea. The idea is this: a good talk is like calling a person's name. A good talk is like calling a person's name. When you call a person's name, what do? They always turn and answer. In fact, when people hear their name, it registers so powerfully in their brains that it's such a strong, potent emotional reaction. It's a self-recognition thing. It's like when you look into a picture and there's a group picture, what's the first person that you look for? You look for yourself. It's that powerful when you call somebody's name. So when you're calling the names of people, you have a way of getting their attention. And a good talk is almost like calling somebody's name, so that they can actually hear you and look and turn no matter what they're hearing. And that's the goal. Because if people can listen to you, that is where value is created. Value is created not at the point of talking. It is created at the point of listening. When people actually can listen, that's where value is created. So you have so many fantastic things to say. You can share so many things. You have this important thing that can change people's lives. You have so much information. But because you're so poor at telling it, nobody's listening, and therefore there's no value. So talk may be cheap, but attention is not. And because value is created at the point of attention. So what are you going to do about it? This is what we're talking about. Talk is cheap, attention is expensive. Attention is not, and there's a price to pay for it. So if you want to be that person that can always get the attention of your audience, there are certain things that you need to know. Now, I listed these things. It's really about your listeners, okay? The point is to bring it out that it is about your listeners. It's not about anybody else, but your listeners. Only your listeners. So the question you have to ask yourself is, who are your listeners? Who are those listeners? Who are they? And then a list of questions there. I can't go through all of them, but I'm going to try to touch on a few, and before the time runs out. Who are they? What do they want to hear? How do they want to hear what it is that you want to speak about? How do they want to hear what you have to talk about? When do they want to hear it? Where do they want to hear it? And who do they want to hear it from? So who are your listeners? Who are they? What do they want to hear? How do they want to hear it? What do they want to hear? When do they want to hear it? And of course, where do they want to hear it? And finally, who do they want to hear it from? If you make your talk all about your listeners and think about the who, the what, the when, the where, the how, you will be able to attract the attention that you're looking for. But before I go into those different issues, I want to start with the first few things that I think every person that is giving a talk, a presentation, a speech, a toast, etc., etc. This is some of the things that you should know, particularly when you're doing some serious stuff like business presentations, like pitches, and so on and so forth. When you're trying to sell a vision to your organization and so on. First things first, know your stuff. It's so important that you have to be competent. To be able to attract attention, you must be competent. Competent is an ability to be able to attract attention on its own. Competence sells itself. If you're not a very good speaker, if you stutter, if you have a way of not being able to handle information, all right. Everything is not about sounding right. Everything is not about being able to, people will always want to listen, so to speak, being impressive as far as it were, as far as speaking. Sometimes things about competence. There are audiences that you stand in front of. If you look incompetent, you are going to sell yourself less. It doesn't matter how eloquent you are. Eventually, those people will not want to listen to you. So, competence. Be competent. Study whatever it is that you're studying. Make sure that you know exactly what you're talking about and come out as competent. No matter what you do, your competence has a way of shining through even in a bad speech. So, number one, first and foremost, please work on your competence. The second thing is that you should sell yourself. In other words, there's a way you look, there's a way you talk. Packaging is important. People say that packaging is not important. But I remember I was reading a post by somebody I respect, and he was trying to sell a product. I think it was Gary, sugar, and groundnuts, packaged, something like that. I can't remember, either something like that. And people in the comment section, Facebook, people in the comment section were saying all kinds of stuff. They were saying, the product is more expensive than the packaging. And they were like, this is a failure right from the get-go, and so on and so forth. Nobody will buy it. And I was actually siding with their argument a little bit until I read somebody's comment, and the person said that even water that you drink, the packaging of water is far more expensive than the water itself. Have you noticed that the bottle costs more than the water? And you can name it more and more, because packaging is more important. Perception is more important than reality, because perception is actually reality. So you must package yourself. So here you are, you're competent, fantastic, but package yourself, sell yourself, look competent, look like somebody that should be talking the way you're talking. Look the part, dress the part, look serious. Sell yourself. Do everything you can to sell yourself. Do everything you can to make sure that you sell yourself. All right. Now, the last thing is to focus on your message. Focus on your message. Don't focus on your mess. These three things I think are very important. You know your stuff, you sell yourself, and then you focus on your message. What do I mean by focusing on message? Focus on what it is that you have to say, not how you feel. A lot of times when people come to talk to front of people, they are preoccupied by how they feel. They're preoccupied with their fear, with their inconsistency. I say this a lot. Your message is more important than your mess. Your message is more important than your mess. Your message is more important than your insecurities. Your message is more important than your mistakes. So focus on your message. If you have a message to give, it is what you should do. It liberates you. It's what you should just pass across. Forget about everything else and focus on your message. So let's go ahead and find out the things that you can do to be able to get the attention of your audience. What are killer things you can do? Who are your audience? Who are they? Who are they? First and foremost, what are their names? First, what's the name of the organization? What does the organization stand for? What's the name of this person? What does this person stand for? What do they look like? What do they believe in? If you know people's names and you call their names, they are going to love it. People love the sound of their names. So if you're talking to a crowd and you're able to know the names of the people that you're speaking to, that helps. But even if you don't know who their names are, the question is, what is their unique identity? When I say you don't know their names, I mean you don't know their individual names, but you should know their organization. You should be able to research the website. You should be able to know everything you can about the people you're talking to. But what is their unique identity? Because a name is actually a unique identity of an individual. So what's the unique identity of these people? What's the unique identity of this organization, of this group? What are those things? When you do those things, When you understand those things, you now begin to associate your talk with whatever it is that they are talking about. Did you get what I was saying? You associate your talk with their identity. Now, if you've heard about Pavlov dogs, I don't know if you've heard about the experiment of I.P. Pavlov. Pavlov was an animal animal physiologist, animal and human physiologist many, many years back. And he studied dogs, or rather, he was doing some studies on the human physiology and animal physiology. And of course, he tested this thing on his dogs, and he found out that whenever it is he wanted to feed them, they would begin to salivate whenever it is he was going to feed them. But he also noticed that when he was going to feed them, if he rings a bell, they start salivating even before they see or smell the food. So he began to withdraw the food and just ring the bell. And even in just ringing the bell, they were salivating. Why? Because they had associated the bell with food. When you associate something with what people want, you get attention. You get a response. Not just any kind of response. Sometimes a deep physiological and physical reaction. And that is what you can do as a speaker. You can associate. This is one of the reasons why comedians are such great communicators. If you notice, when a comedian talks, they don't just talk about anything. They talk about something you may have experienced before. Things you can relate to. Things you can associate with yourself. Yes, MT Adenora said classical conditioning. Yes, you can actually condition. It's about taking advantage of the things that people are wanting and needing to hear. So you listen to that, you associate yourself with it. So what's the identity? And then how can you associate with it? When you can do those things and associate, you become the feel-good plug. You become that person that when you say something, they just feel good. Because you are saying something that is associated with who they are and what they want. Be the feel-good plug of your audience. That when they see you, they can actually feel whatever it is that they want and are trying to achieve. It's possible. So what's the next thing? Because I'm running out of time already. What do they want to hear? What do they want to hear? Your audience wants to hear anything that can make them avoid pain and pursue pleasure. This is the fact of life. Your audience wants to hear the things that will make them avoid pain or pursue pleasure. People avoid pain and pursue pleasure. They say that a man's headache is more important to him than an earthquake in China. Yes, people avoid pain and pursue pleasure. And you are simply not being realistic when you don't understand that concept and use it to your advantage. Understand that people will consistently avoid pain and pursue pleasure. In fact, somebody once said that people, if you want to be rich, give people what they need. But if you want to be very, very rich, give them what they want. People sacrifice more money on the altar of wants than they do on the altar of needs. This is a fact of life. It's unfortunate, but it is true. That's what people do. They avoid pain and they pursue pleasure. So if you want to be able to get their attention, you must be able to sell the avoidance of pain and the pursuit of pleasure. You must be able to show that this thing will reduce their pain and increase their pleasure. And I don't mean anything like useless pleasure or something that will kill them. No, I mean something as simple as something that will make you feel pleasant. That when you're able to give your daughter this gift, your daughter will be very happy. That's pleasurable. And that's something to look forward to. It's a basic human want and human behavior. I am really, really out of time. So I'm going to run this down very quickly and try to finish up. There are other basic things that you do whenever you're trying to speak, and it's very, very important. And those basics have to do with being audible, having the right body language, and so on and so forth. But I can't speak about them today. I'm going to try to refer you as much as I can to things that you can use. Now, I have a taster session. I have a class, a session coming up very, very soon. That's about next weekend. And it's a taster session for a bigger one coming up later. And that session is free of charge, okay? I'm going to try to post the links, and you can follow me. If you follow me on social media, you can find out. Google my name. It's not hard to find Benjamin Wayo. There are very few Benjamin Wayos on earth. I think there are only 3 of us. 2 of them are politicians, and I'm the only one that is not a politician, but I'm talking. So I think we have some.
You're not a politician yet.
So I have a class coming up, confidence and class, a free taster session. Is next weekend. You can register for it and you'll find out a lot more about what we're talking about. But I say that these are basics, but there are also things that are far more advanced than that. things like the emotional intelligence a speaker should have, emotionally managing yourself, the kind of characteristics or the traits that a speaker has, and of course, being a likable speaker. I think you can learn much more about these things as we interact. I'm going to post my coaching link, a site you can go to find out things I do, Coach Lee, and also some of my products are on Seller. You can go and check them out. I'll post all the links in the chat box so that you can have access to them. These are two of the books I've written. Attention is cheap, talk is cheap, but attention is expensive, and moving and memorable. Talk is cheap, talks more. It finishes what I've started here. And then attention, moving and memorable gives you some hands-on tools of what to do to be able to be a very, very great speaker, to move and also make yourself memorable, to touch the heart and also to touch the mind. So I have these two things. You can check them out. And they are very small books, very small books. You can finish them in an hour or two if you're very slow. So it's very easy and very easy to follow. So I also would love you to follow me. Anytime I come out with some very great talks and write-ups every week. I call it Born on a Monday because I happen to be born on a Monday, even though my name is not Monday. And there I try to show some powerful work ethics I've learned over the years. So I will end with this on this note. If you can see this picture, you're going to see a man stretching forth to save a father and leaving a child, his own child, and his wife behind. I've forgotten the title of this particular picture, but it's an antique picture and it's very, very powerful. Now, anytime I see this, I say, oh, what a stupid man. I would definitely save my child and save my wife. But you see, there is a little bit of that stupidity in each and every one of us. There is that little bit of stupidity in each and every one of us, where we're looking to our past and not to our future. One of my mentors always says this. He says, your future is far bigger than your past. So there's a way we hold on and cling to our past. We have heard that we're not great speakers. We have heard that we're not good looking. We have heard that we can't do something. And we hold on to those ideas and those concepts further than the future, or rather the present and the future. The wife represents the present, the child represents the future. And we go to our father, our past. Don't hold on to your past. You can do better as a speaker. I say this a lot. Anyone can speak. Talk may be cheap, but attention is expensive, and you can be cashing out in only a matter of time. Thank you very much for your time and for your attention. So I'd like to just give a few minutes to anybody that has questions. I don't know if I still have time for questions, or I took all the time. Okay, awesome. All right, so thank you so much again. Thank you for your time and thank you for your attention. If you have any questions, I think you can just type them in the chat.
Sorry, yeah. Please, you can go on. We had some interruptions there.
Okay, sir.
Okay. So we have a question from Oluwatosin Adeyeye. Adeyeye. Forgive me if I didn't pronounce that right.
No problem. All right. Thank you so much, Dr. Benjamin Wayo, for your presentation. Really appreciate it. I just wanted to ask, you talked about competence, and you talked about how that's very important. And it seems as though from your presentation, that seemed to be the most important thing to do. And you talked about how that you have to look competent. So I just want you to probably dig into that. Because sometimes you might look competent and not actually be competent. I don't know if that makes sense.
Okay. I would like to correct.
I don't know.
Pardon me for confidence. Can you hear me now? Sorry.
Yeah. Sorry, I lost you for a bit. I just wanted to say that sometimes you might look competent and not be competent. But my own point is, how can you be competent? You are competent, you have that competence, but how can you look that competence? I don't know if that makes sense. Because you talked about the appearance too and the perception. But
Yes.
there's a certain look that you have to sell to your people. Of course, you talked about the audience and all that. But is there a way that you can look competent that cuts across board, irrespective of the audience that you have? I don't know if that makes
Okay.
sense.
Yes, it does. It does. So first and foremost, the first thing about competence, like you said, somebody can actually look competent and not be competent. And that is the tragedy of life. In fact, a lot of people that are making progress in the world today are those that look it but are not it. People that are able to package themselves properly. So this is where the key comes. There are two things you need to do if you want to look competent. If you are competent and you want to look competent, there are two powerful things you need to do. First and foremost, you need to become more competent. Focus on the competence itself. Forget about looking at like it. First of all, the first things you do, be more competent. Be true to yourself. I say these things, that there are two things every great speaker has. It doesn't matter whether they are politicians, whether they are religious leaders, whether they are great business people. If they are great speakers, they have two things. They have I and S. IS. I say it. I is, you is, they is, we is. IS stands for integrity and skill. They have integrity, they have skill. They have the skill of being able to speak well, but more than that, they have the integrity. Integrity. In other words, they know what they know and they know it well. They have the right experience. They have the right background. They have the right qualifications. So focus first of all on really being competent. I don't believe in selling yourself even though you are a liar. I don't believe that even though you are a fake person, you should just continue selling yourself as a fake person. I believe in putting your best foot forward. It's a part of life. Yes, we put our best foot forward. But I believe in standing for what is right. So be somebody of integrity, be somebody that has experience, that has knowledge, and continue to increase in it. So increase your competence, no matter what happens, no matter what you face, no matter what you go through. People notice you, they don't notice you. They listen to you, they don't listen to you. Fine. Increase your competence. Increase your competence. That's the first thing. The second thing becomes easier when you have the competence. That's packaging. The same packaging other people are doing. In fact, you may not need to go as far as packaging the way they package, because your product will sell itself. I mean, there are certain products in the market today, like Alabukun, they don't have the most fantastic packaging, but the integrity of the products is selling itself year after year. So you can package. Now, if Alabukun was not packaged well, I remember Dudu Osun. When Dudu Osun came out, first of all, it wasn't looking so good, but they have worked on their packaging and it looks so fantastic. So work on your packaging. I said this and I repeat it over and over again. You must believe in your packaging. It's important. It's a part of life. You can't run away from it. The cost of products increase because of packaging. And people will not buy it if the packaging is not good. So people will not buy you if you don't package well. So first of all, increase in your competence. Focus on that. Believe in that. Don't stop that, no matter what happens. But then package. How do you package? Package the way you look. How does a professional like you, how are you supposed to look? Look that way. Dress properly. Make sure that you smell good. Make sure that your breath is good. Make sure that you look good. How do you speak as somebody of your profession? Somebody that is high up there in your profession, how do they speak? Make sure that you're speaking the way you're supposed to speak. Okay? Then build. This is what we're talking about. Why I'm telling you about attention is that when you are a speaker, you need to know how to use and manipulate words so that you can use and sell your competence. So here you are, you know this thing so well, but somebody that knows how to talk is chancing you in the office. Over and over again, they are getting promotions over you because you don't want to talk. Talking is part of packaging. Because it was Les Brown that said this: anytime you open your mouth, you tell the world who you are. And people of the world are not always so good at knowing who you really are. Human beings are not experts in people's character per time. So if you talk in a particular way, they will perceive you as competent. They will perceive you as competent. If you wanted to ask directions from somebody today, for instance, and you are on the street and you ask, please, where's the way to Berger? You know, I'm trying to get the way to Berger in Abuja. What's the way? And the person say, Berger, I think if you go this way and go that way, I think you'll get there. Now, this person may have given you the right direction, but because they don't look confident, because they are not talking very well, you're not likely going to follow them. But if somebody that does not even know the way say, beggar, oh, that's very easy. Just go this way and go that way. He can send you to Zaria, but you will most likely follow his direction because he looks confident. And so you should be in my class, confidence and class.
Yes. All other questions should be answered in your class next Friday, guys. Wow, that last
Thank you very much.
presentation was so on point.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Wow. Ladies and gentlemen, that is vintage Dr. Benjamin Wayo. He's someone you always want to listen to. Always you want to listen to him. He's very articulate, very intelligent, and he just has a way with words. So it's not a surprise he's a DTM.